That was excellent coverage of your 1906 incident of Fort Brown. But what I'm about to say, if it had been introduced in the trial, it would have been damning evidence and there wouldn't have been an outcome the way it was. And here it goes. As a historian, I am involved in so many conversations from one day to the next, year upon year, and I honestly can't remember who told me this, but I was present in a conversation of someone of the next generation that told me the story, and it goes like this. At the end of Elizabeth Street, where there was the Miller Hotel and then Landrum's, for those of you that know the history of the outfit, and then right where the crossing was that goes to the Gateway Bridge, there was a gas station, and it was Tony Garza's father. Now, Tony Garza was the ambassador to Mexico. He was our county judge for a while. I knew it. Well, in this gas station, you had a covey, a gathering of old men, and they were sitting there talking and going on about old times. Now, this person was telling me this, and this person was a kid at the time. He was present. He said they got on the subject of the 1906 uprising, say. What happened was, he says that a friend of his was scouting around the firing range at Fort Brown, and there were these shell casings that he found. So he gathered them up and put them in a little bag. They were 30-40 Krag Jorgensen. If you know about the trial, that was the rifle that was used. That was a rifle that was of military use at the time. Well, so he had this little bag full of these shell casings, and he was playing with them later on, and this man came up to him and he says, let me see that. He says, how much would you take for the whole bag? And the guy says, I don't know, a couple of pennies or a nickel, whatever it was. And so the guy bought them. Now, you see how this thing is building up? One of the key points of evidence in the trial was the disbursement of these shell casings. So the ones that were found there were a little suspect in the forensic analysis of the trial and whatever else. But after what I just said, we may well know, we probably do know, what the origin of those shell casings was. Another item of supreme importance in the whole scenario of this is that people are asking, well, why did they go up and down the alleys shooting? What provoked them to do that? Well, I'll tell you. The incident that so-called provoked them to do it included a distant cousin of mine, Mr. Tate. Mr. Tate was related to the Celayas, Jose Celaya and Simon Celaya and all that. All right. He and his wife and an entourage were coming back from Matamoros side along the boardwalk, along the little elevated wooden path that was there from the ferry up to the boardwalk at the end of Levy Street. And that's how you got into Brownsville after you went across to Matamoros in those days, a ferry. Okay. At that time, there were, Mr. Tate and his wife was going that way, and then coming this way was a grouping of the soldiers from Fort Brown, and those were the so-called Buffalo soldiers. Well, now this is an account that you've got to take at face value, okay? The soldiers say were a little inebriated, and it stands to reason, that happens. And so when they crossed, the path is narrow on that little rickety wooden elevated path there. And so it was perceived that one of the black soldiers kind of bumped Mrs. Tate, it didn't show the proper, I guess, courtesy of offering a wide enough path. And so what Mr. Tate did was he backhanded the soldier. The soldier fell off of that particular path and fell into the mud, and he was dishonored, say. That was the generating force behind them so-called going back to the fort and kibitzing and saying, okay, here's what we're going to do and whatever. And that was that was the background of all of this leading up to the raid. Now, the general consensus, though, was that after all this is distilled and over and all, it was that there were the powers that be at the time, and there were certain people that were high up in the social hierarchy that just did not like the fact that the Fort Brown was stationed with the black soldiers. It was just a product of the time. And so this incident happened. They put it together in their minds. So, all right, here's what we're going to do. And then the outcome, of course, is they supposedly got in blackface and in the dark of the night. And the first thing that they did, it was important, was they shot out the whatever lights there were in the alleyways and all that. And that was Mrs. Cowan's house and all of the ones that were on that alleyway going to the Ruby Saloon that finally ended up. So that's the background of that story.